Okay guys, so in this video, we're gonna learn how to solve the roots of a quadratic equation. So, why oh why do you want to solve for the roots of a quadratic equation when you can say for example, you can just do this, you can graph the quadratic equation, graph the parabola yourself, and just find out where exactly it crosses the x-axis. Well, you can do that. But that's going to take you forever because you're going to have to plot every point until you get a point that has a y value of 0. Well, you can do that, but and that's going to take you forever. So you don't want to do that. And another thing is, sometimes the roots could be complex and it doesn't cross 0. So you never want to do that. So it's easier to just solve for the roots. Okay? So to show you how to solve for the roots, we need an f of x. So let's say I'm just gonna use blue for this. Say f of x is equal to 3x squared minus 75. There we go. So what is the first step in solving for the roots? So because the definition of the roots is that they are the x values where f of x is equal to 0. So first step number one, I'm going to put here step 1, set f of x equal to 0, okay? So I'm going to put here, I'm just going to replace f of x with 0 and still keep the right side equation. Right there, it's still 3x squared minus 25. And then step 2, we just solve for x, right? Solve for x. There we go. Okay. So as you can see, we're only solving for x, right? So it means that we can safely divide both sides by a common factor. And the common factor for this, is 3. 75 is divisible by 3, and 3 is, of course, divisible by itself. Okay, so we can safely divide both sides by 3, and it's not going to change the equation at all. Okay, so here I'm going to rewrite it. So we have here x squared minus 25. Okay, there we go. So, as you can see, based on what we learned in the past videos, what kind of quadratic equation is this? So, what kind of quadratic equation is this? Okay, so as you can see, there is no x term, right? There's no x term, so this is a pure quadratic. So, if you have a pure quadratic, that's very easy because you can just easily separate the x and the constant term. Put the constant term on one side. So since this is negative, if you put it on one side, you don't have the negative anymore. And you'll have both positive terms on both sides, correct? Okay, so if you have a pure quadratic, it's very easy. You just put the constant on one side, put the x squared term on the other side. And there we go. And next is we just square root both sides. Just like that. Okay. So what do we have here? Right hand side first. We have x, right? But this one, what are we going to get? Are we just going to get 5? No, because remember, we have a quadratic equation. And quadratic equations, they always have 2 roots. They always have 2 roots. So quadratic equations... Quadratics always have 2 roots. Do not forget this. So, what is the other root here? Can you guess? It is minus 5. I don't like writing the constant term on the left side, so I'm going to swap them around. So I'm going to write here x is equal to minus 5 and 5. Okay, that is your answer. Right there. Okay, so I hope you understand that. So every time you square root a number, you always take into account the negative root. Not just the positive root, but also the negative root. Just like this. So square root of 25 is both negative 5 and 5. That's it. Alright, so it's time to do another example. So this one, our f of x is equal to f of x, I'm going to use pink now. F of x is equal to 4x squared minus 15. So remember step 1, set f of x is equal to 0. There we go. So right here, 0 is equal to 4x squared minus 15. You know what? I really don't like the 0 being on the left side, so I'm going to erase this. I'm going to erase that and move it to the other side. Okay, so 4x squared minus 15 is equal to 0. That looks nicer because remember the general form of a quadratic equation looks like this. Yeah, I want it to be matching with this. Okay, so let's erase that. All right, so what do we do next? This is a pure quadratic again. We solve for x, right? Step 2, solve for x. So this is a pure quadratic. What do we do now? Can we factor it? No, there are no common factors, so we just leave it as is. So if there are no common factors, we can just separate the two terms. Put the constant term on one side, x squared term on the other side. So I'm going to write 4x squared here is equal to 15. There we go. We can put the 4 on the other side, so we're going to end up with x squared is equal to 15 divided by 4. So what's next? We square root both sides, right? Yeah, so what is square root of x squared? It's just x. So remember what we did before. If we are rooting a number, square rooting a number, we always take into account the positive and negative roots, correct? So we're going to end up with plus minus the square root of 15 divided by 4. But the 4, we can get the square root of 4, so we can just rewrite this as plus minus the square root of 15 divided by 2. Okay, so there we go. This is our answer. Of course, if you don't like the plus minus notation, you can always write it like this. Like, some people prefer writing it this way, but I myself like writing it this way. I like writing it this way better. And minus square root of 15 divided by 2. They mean the same thing. Yeah. There we go. We're going to do more examples later in the next videos.